Welcome to the many interpretations of Gigantopithecus. Gigantopithecus was a large primate that lived from the early to middle Pleistocene in what is now China. They went extinct around 300,000 years ago. This is also the first primate that we are taking a look at in this series, which is something that I'm overall very excited about because it's just kind of like new waters entirely. It's also a very tricky one to do because of the tricky nature of Gigantopithecus, but that's something that we'll talk about a little bit more as the video progresses. Without further ado though, let's just get right into that video. So I want to start off with some paleo art, some old classic paleo art done in 1975 by Zdenek Burian. This is very cool and it is very different from practically everything else that we're going to be seeing. You have two pieces of art, one of them showing it being a little bit more quadrupedal and the other one showing it kind of like standing upright, very similar to like a hominin, like, you know, the human lineage of primates, I guess, so to speak. Now, I wanted to be clear going into this that we don't really have a good idea of what Gigantopithecus looked like in life, and that's because it is a very fragmentary animal. It's only known from jaw material as well as a plethora of teeth. What is known is that its closest modern-day relatives are the orangutans. It actually belongs to the same subfamily as modern-day orangutans, that being Ponginae. They are still pretty separated from modern-day orangutans, but that is the closest modern-day relative. And so as a result, most modern-day reconstructions do portray Gigantopithecus as basically a large orangutan. But again, it's not entirely known. That's just like that's the best route to take given the information that we have. This was, of course, before that information was presented, and so we have an ape that is overall decently unique with some pretty interesting colors. It is also portrayed as being huge, as you can see right here, standing right next to Homo erectus. The exact size of Gigantopithecus has always been a matter of debate. It's gone all over the place, and that's because you're trying to extrapolate from very limited fossil material, and so you know a jaw and some teeth are definitely not reliable when trying to estimate the size of Gigantopithecus. A lot of estimations have been all over the place. I have a list right here. We have there was a point in time where it was estimated to be around 12 feet tall or 3.7 meters if it stood upright. There was once a time when it was thought to be about 6 foot 1 inch tall, which is just an inch shorter than me, or 1.85 meters. And the most current size estimates in terms of like it standing upright are around 7 feet 7 inches, or about 2.3 meters tall. Again, it's gone all over the place, and that's like standing upright estimates. It was likely a quadrupedal animal given the fact that primates are typically quadrupedal and its closest modern relatives are primarily quadrupedal. If anything, it could walk for short distances on its hind limbs, but you know, that's a lot of the tricky stuff that we're going into. But we'll go ahead and move on to the next depiction, that being the primevals. This is a Yeti, but apparently it has been confirmed to be based off of, or at least meant to represent, Gigantopithecus. Now, Gigantopithecus being the basis for a Yeti certainly does have backing in human history. Gigantopithecus is huge in cryptozoology because it's often been used as an explanation for animals like the Yeti, or even for the North American Bigfoot because, you know, it's a large ape. The Yeti specifically, it's in an area that would have been closer to the range of where Gigantopithecus did live, so it was often used as the basis for like what exactly the Yeti could be in real life. We are not going to be looking at all of the Yeti and Bigfoot depictions that exist out there because I think that's just a little bit too much. A lot of the like Yeti and Bigfoot depictions that exist out there are not based off of Gigantopithecus. And so I feel like it wouldn't really make sense to include them in a video like this. Instead, maybe in the future, I can just make it a whole separate video on Bigfoot and Yeti specifically. There will be some exceptions to that rule. This is one of them because the directors full on admitted that this is meant to be Gigantopithecus, but going forward, don't expect too many Yetis or Bigfoots in this. Anyway, it does have sort of like orange fur as well as an upright stance again. The orange fur, that is a little bit more in line with modern day orangutans. It is something that Gigantopithecus possibly did have. The head is a lot more like, it's got an interesting shape to it. The nose is very interesting. And I think that it's, stop motion, which is always just really cool to see. After that, we have walking with cavemen. We have this huge Gigantopithecus right here that it's oversized for one thing. It has orange fur, and most notably, it is sporting an upright stance. As I mentioned before, the primarily quadrupedal stance is way more likely for Gigantopithecus, given the fact that, again, most apes are quadrupedal, and they don't spend most of their time upright like we humans do. It is very detailed though, and I quite like it, but it does seem a little bit more on the gorilla side. Gigantopithecus is really, really removed from gorillas. It is within the hominid family, but it did branch off from the rest of the, like from the subfamily that includes gorillas, not being homininae. Which is, of course, that's the subfamily that includes gorillas, chimpanzees, and even us. So, of course, kind of like reconstructing it to look a little bit more like a gorilla is not the best course of action because it's way more unlikely that it would look similar to a gorilla. But after that, we have Monster Quest, the real-life King Kong. That title definitely makes sense. So I believe that it's just a statue right here that's the Gigantopithecus that we see in the short. I mean, I know that in a lot of Monster Quest episodes, they do have a CGI model of Bigfoot, but I'm just going to focus on this right here. It's got more of like an orange fur coloration, and it's absolutely massive, standing a little bit more upright. A lot of depictions will be standing upright, even though it's not too likely for the animal. But it's very detailed, and I do quite like the way that it looks in like the work that obviously went into it. Next up, we have Animal Armageddon. So these ones, they are primarily quadrupedal, which is good. You know, that's finally a step in the correct direction for something that's way more likely for the animal. They sport sort of a brown coloration, and according to this concept art right here, they are definitely oversized, but they are far closer to what is, again, most likely for this type of animal. Then we have Ice Age. This is from Continental Drift. We have Captain Gut, who I think he looks really fun. He has a very fun design for Gigantopithecus. He's got, I mean, like, again, we don't really know what Gigantopithecus looked like, so coloration like this could be possible for the animal. But what's like really fun with his design is the fact that his fur kind of like makes the like common traits that you would find on like, you know, classic depictions of pirates, like this sort of pirate hat, which is made out of the hair on his head. He's even got like a beard going on. And I don't know. I think he's very cool. I think he's a very, very cool depiction. A lot of people think that he's Dinopithecus because they think that he looks a little bit more like a baboon. But no, he's confirmed to be Gigantopithecus. And again, I quite like him. I actually rewatched this movie recently, and his portrayal is really fun. Like, this movie's pretty fun overall. I quite like it. So he's definitely one of the most unique ones that we have on here. There's also David Attenborough's Natural History Museum, alive. This is certainly just Bigfoot, just walking through the halls, upright stance, more of a hominin style face. It's pretty far removed from our more modern understanding of what Gigantopithecus was probably like. So can't really say too much else about that. There is also the Jungle Book 2016. King Louis full-on calls himself a Gigantopithecus, which I think is really cool. I think that's a really fun route to take for portraying an animal like King Louis, because orangutans, they do not exist in India. The range of Gigantopithecus might have extended over to India, so they wanted to keep the fauna in the movie a little bit more true to the region. And because orangutans, you know, they don't exist in India, that was a little bit tricky for them. But instead, they just looked at the fossil record and they chose Gigantopithecus. And making him look like a giant orangutan, that certainly fits with more modern reconstructions of Gigantopithecus, so that's fun. He even has like flanges, which is, you know, those cheek pads that you often see that like mature male orangutans have. So I think he's cool, and I love his CGI. Christopher Walken does voice him. And one interesting thing is that he does eat a lot of fruit. Fruit was likely a huge part of the diet of Gigantopithecus. An isotopic analysis revealed that they likely mostly ate like, you know, fruit, leaves, and possibly bamboo, things that were all within a forest. In fact, it seemed that they had a cavity rate of around 11% in their molars, which implies that they probably ate quite a bit of fruit if they're getting a decent amount of cavities. So the fact that he has like a lot of fruit, I think that's just really fun. Again, quality of his CGI looks really good. He looks just like an orangutan that's just scaled up. But you know, having him be Gigantopithecus is fun. He's oversized, of course, but it's cool. I like it. We'll go ahead and move on to video games. First, we have Wild Park 1. This Gigantopithecus looks a lot more like a Yeti. Again, kind of like using that logic that the Yeti is kind of like, in a lot of ways, Gigantopithecus was popularized because of the Yeti. Like I said, Gigantopithecus became very popular in cryptozoology, and so sometimes finding links between it and the Yeti, or that does make sense. In Wildlife Park 2, not nearly as much like the Yeti, but they are still, they still seem a little bit more hominin. At least it seems like they are quadrupedal. There's also Zoo Tycoon 2, where we have this one. The head, it might seem a little bit more like a gorilla's head, but at least it is quadrupedal, and it does have like an orange coloration similar to modern day orangutans. So it's a pretty good depiction, not too far off from more modern reconstructions. Now, this is going to be one of the only other exceptions of my earlier rule. That is Carnivore's Ice Age, the Yeti. Now, the reason why I decided to include this one is because, of course, it's called Carnivore's Ice Age. The Ice Age took place in the Pleistocene, and the Pleistocene is when Gigantopithecus did live. However, Gigantopithecus did go extinct when the Earth started to cool a little bit more, and its environment started to change from like the forest environment to savannas. And obviously, it ate most of the food in the foresty environment, and so that's probably why it went extinct, which means that Gigantopithecus probably wouldn't have done too well in a true Ice Age. But regardless, because this is a Yeti in a game called Carnivore's Ice Age, I figured I'd include it. Even though that's not even like, it's not the best logic, because not every single animal in this game even exists in the Pleistocene, like, Paraceratherium, for example. But I just decided to include it. And it's an alien anyway. These are all aliens that exist on the planet of FMMUV 32. But I don't know. Here it is. It used to terrify me when I was younger. It's got a very fun design, a very traditional Yeti sort of design with a really red face and like a red belly, dinosaur-like feet, and these huge claws. And, they mostly walk around bipedally, upright like a human, but when they're running, they use all fours, and it's really terrifying to see. Like, I always hated trying to hunt these guys, but they're that's the one other exception that we have here. In Jurassic Park Builder, you have, when it's a lower level Gigantopithecus, you have more of a gray coloration. As you level it up, it gets more of an orange coloration, very similar to modern day orangutans. It probably makes sense for this game. You typically have designs that are pretty similar to this, like more traditional ideas. Like it looks very Bigfoot in its design, like a lot of these depictions have looked. But yeah, it's a classic, I guess. Speaking of Bigfoot, we do have the Arc Gigantopithecus. Arc, very much like a Bigfoot. It's got like the hominin face, upright stance, walking around. I was so shocked the first time I saw it because, I tried out Arc in the past. I was so shocked when I came up to it and I found out it was a Gigantopithecus. I was like, is that Bigfoot? And turns out it's a Gigantopithecus. Anyway, yeah, as I've mentioned ad nauseum before, the bipedal stance, upright stance, not likely for Gigantopithecus. Probably would have looked a little bit more like an orangutan walking around. We don't know exactly how it looked, but yeah. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot about Gigantopithecus is a little bit shaky. We don't know exactly what it looked like. All we know is that what it's most closely related to, and as a result, most reconstructions make it look like that. But even that might not be 100%. The size is not exactly known. A lot of these fellas that we looked at are oversized. Because, a lot of them are going off of like the larger estimates, like the past larger estimates, because some estimates made them crazy huge. But a lot of people suggested that I should look at King Kong or Harry and the Hendersons and stuff like that. And I didn't want to get too, like, I didn't want to be too loose with my definition of a Gigantopithecus. A lot of those fellas that were being recommended were definitely not inspired from Gigantopithecus. Like King Kong most certainly was not. King Kong has always been he's always meant to be a giant gorilla rather than a giant, Gigantopithecus. And even though, the fact that, giant apes often do equal Gigantopithecus, I do understand that in a lot of people's minds. But again, I just didn't want to be too loose with what we were calling a Gigantopithecus here. And I have been saying the name Gigantopithecus way too many times by now, so we're probably going to end the video right here. If you like prehistoric related things, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you on board. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and have an awesome day.